begins with Allan Savory's preface.
As a youngster, my only aim in life was to live in the wildest African bush forever. Though I eventually did have that opportunity, I ended up forsaking it in order to work towards saving the wildlife that was my reason for being in the bush. Even in the wildest areas, the land was deteriorating, in fact gradually turning to desert, rendering it ever less able to support life of any kind. I was determined to find a way to reverse this process. That quest took me in a direction I never would have anticipated, compelling me to work first with people who for generations had been caretakers of the land and whose livestock I believed were responsible for initiating the deterioration, then with those who were advising them, and eventually with many others as a Member of Parliament attempting to deal with environmental degradation and its effects at the policy level. What I learned from these experiences was that the remorseless spread of deserts and the human impoverishment that always resulted were related to the presence of livestock in many cases. But it was how those livestock were managed. That was the problem, not their presence, and it was the management that had to change. This also had implications for climate change and our ability to tackle it, because desertification causes soils to release carbon and renders them less able to store it. This book describes the way forward that emerged. It involves a new framework for management that enables people to make decisions which satisfy immediate needs without jeopardizing their future well-being or that of others. In turn, of course, the actions that result from any decision must also enhance the well-being of the environment that sustains us now and will have to sustain future generations. The greatest strength of this new management framework is that it leads us to see that we serve our own interests best when we account for the environmental as well as the social and the economic consequences of our actions. Holistic Management, a common-sense revolution to restore our environment, is the revised and updated version of Holistic Management, a new framework for decision-making, 1999. Which was a second edition attempt to explain the development of the framework underlying holistic management and how it could be used in decision-making. The new subtitle is a reflection of the urgency with which we must restore our environment. This requires a revolution in management, agriculture, policy-making, and institutional behavior that can only be initiated at the grassroots level. My hope is that this book inspires that revolution by identifying the challenges we have to address and how we can address them successfully. The change of subtitle is only the most obvious difference. The book's ideas have been clarified and strengthened through the contributions of those I've worked with over the last 2 decades on 6 continents. These people include many thousands who make their living from the land and are learning to restore it profitably through practices that mimic nature. This edition also reflects the contributions made by my wife and colleague, Jodie Butterfield. It would not have appeared if she hadn't co-authored it with me. Because so much of the book is built on previous editions and my own history, she insisted it continue to be told in my voice, rather than our voice, but hers runs subtly throughout. The key differences between the second edition and this one are woven throughout the book, as critical themes, and will become apparent to anyone who has read both volumes. This edition includes fewer pages, as we've been able to simplify a number of concepts, eliminate detail that clouded understanding, and jettison management guidelines that were not unique to holistic management, and that others have written about far more competently. With the creation of the Savory Institute in 2009, which Jodie and I co-founded with a group of my early students to continue this work, and following a TED Talk I gave in 2013, since viewed by millions of people, our primary readership has greatly expanded. Readers now include healthcare providers, nutritionists, fitness aficionados, students of all ages, scientists from multiple disciplines, and many thousands of parents and others, increasingly concerned about where their food comes from, how it is raised, and how well the land that provided it is cared for. Many of them are also climate change activists who know that we cannot successfully tackle climate change by reducing fossil fuel emissions alone. We also have to come to grips with agriculture's enormous contribution to climate change. This will require a shift to agricultural practices that produce healthy, living soils that can once again serve as the world's largest carbon sink. Our fate as a civilization is tied to the land and its health, and millions of ordinary people, in making their living from the land, control that fate to a large degree. Unless land managers have the support of the millions of people living in cities who depend on their efforts and whose opinions influence the rate at which institutions and governments can change, those on the land cannot succeed. Given greater public awareness of the need for a shift to holistic management and policy making in what we increasingly recognize as a holistic world, I see exciting times ahead and real hope for generations to come.
Chapter 1, Managing